Ja, welkom kijkers van Weltschmerz. Mijn naam is Even Doornhoff en ik zit hier vandaag met een gast die helemaal uit Zweden is komen rijden van het weekend met de auto. En hij is schrijver van een aantal boeken, waaronder dit boek over de Rockefellers. En daar ga ik hem zo meteen wel het een en ander over vragen, waarom hij daar zo in geïnteresseerd is. Zijn Nederlands is net zo slecht als mijn Zweeds, dus we gaan het gesprek in het Engels doen vandaag. En nou ga ik over op het Engels. Jacob, welkom here at Café Weltschmerz. Can you please introduce yourself for our viewers?
Yes, my name
Your
in
name,
Swedish,
yes, in Swedish.
Jakob Nordangård.
Yeah.
Not easy for anyone that's not Swedish to pronounce.
Exactly.
But I have a PhD in science and technology studies.
Okay.
I'm a geographer, and I also have a master in culture and media production. And the Rockefeller book is one of my books.
Yeah.
I've written 6.
Okay.
And the first of them was actually my doctoral thesis
Okay.
called Ordo ab Chao, the political history of biofuels in the European Union.
Aha.
Mm?
Interesting.
Yeah, and it actually has connections with the Netherlands.
Okay.
Very much so.
Okay.
I didn't realize it when I started my studies, but a lot of these policies
Yeah.
originated from the Netherlands.
Okay. Should I be proud, or is this?
Well, in the end of this, in my doctorate thesis, I talk about, because this was a study of actors and networks involved in lobbying in the European Union
Okay.
to set up the policies.
Okay.
And in my conclusion, I write about the network from the Netherlands.
All right.
That's one. That was one important. Another important network was the international network.
Okay.
That was international philanthropy
Aha.
with the Rockefeller Foundation and also a lot of other big foundations that were involved behind the scenes with influencing policy and funding organizations. So it was a kind of complex game behind this. And when people, when I explain that I wrote about European biofuels policy, it sounds kind of boring.
Yeah,
but it's. I actually came into international power politics.
Aha.
How it really works.
Okay. And do the Rockefellers have anything to do with that? Because I know they are philanthropists. They do all these good things for people in the world. Or do I have the wrong picture about it?
Well, the thing with the philanthropists, I mean, it was kind of a marketing trick. Because...
Can you tell a bit more about it? How this originated?
Yes, I mean, it was, John D. Rockefeller.
Yes.
Everybody knows about John D. Rockefeller and the creation of a Standard Oil company that later became Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, and so on. Big into oil and ruthless in business.
But that was in the 19th century still, I think.
Yes,
when
the late 19th century, the early 20th century.
Yeah.
And they weren't exactly popular.
Aha.
John
Why was
Rockefeller
that?
wasn't popular because he was ruthless in business.
Aha.
It was like either you commit to what we say, or we will destroy you. I mean, it was like he bought up other businesses involved in the oil.
Doesn't really sound like a philanthropist.
No, he was kind of ruthless, and I mean, we have in the late 19th century, early 20th century,
Yeah.
we have this caricatures of John D. Rockefeller, like an octopus controlling the whole earth, more or
Aha,
less.
okay.
Standard Oil was, I mean, very huge. They were all over the world. They had more or less had their own intelligence service and so on. So, so very, very powerful.
So the media were aware of his actions then.
Yes, and they wrote about it.
Okay.
The press were kind of critical.
Mhm.
So that it was not the image they wanted. And
No.
then they another thing happened. First, the Standard Oil, they were attacked because of they had a monopoly that and it wasn't constitutional. It was against. So they acted in a way that was not appropriate.
In the United States.
In the
of
United
course.
States. So it came to court. They had to split the companies.
Yeah.
And that's when Exxon, it was Standard Oil of New Jersey from the beginning.
Yeah.
That became Exxon. And so these businesses came. And during that time, a scandal hit. The Ludlow massacre.
Mhm.
It was. They were also investing in mining.
Yeah.
Mm.
And something
Coal
went wrong
mines.
there, terribly wrong.
And it were a strike
Yeah.
at this mine.
Yeah.
And what did they do, the owners? The Rockefellers were in the background as owners, but and there was a mining company that they tried to. How shall we don't like these strikers, so we sent their own militia.
Mhm.
And it ended with women and children dying in this.
He was really ruthless.
It was ruthless.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't intend to kill the women and children,
of
but
course.
it started to burn and stuff. So people died in this, and a terrible thing, for the Rockefellers.
Yeah.
So they had to do something about it. So how can we get a better image?
Yeah.
So they consulted with Ivy Lee.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, he was the inventor of public relations, more or less, and he said some things to them. One thing was that people will always find out about the truth.
Yes.
So you have to tell the truth to people.
Yeah.
But the thing they did, and he also said, and you to get a better image, you have to have some newspapers that write about you.
Yeah.
In a good manner.
Yeah.
And also take pictures when you are getting dimes to people. Poor people that can get some money from the rich.
I've seen pictures of that.
Yeah?
You see the whole entourage of the Rockefellers in the back. It's like a show, I think, put up like Sinterklaas in the Netherlands. That you give some money to the poor children. So that's what they did.
All these pictures. He's a nice guy. He gives money, and they had the press writing the right things about them. And also they had, before this, started in philanthropy. This starts, I mean, in the late 19th century.
Okay.
And they started, they are involved in the University of Chicago. They set up the Rockefeller Institute of Medical Research. They set up the General Education Board. And then they have the Rockefeller Foundation. And this becomes a part of this. It's like we are giving something to society.
Yes.
But the smart thing was that they had a law passed in United States that said that if you have a foundation, you don't have to pay tax for it.
Oh, that sounds
But
good.
instead, you have to give a certain amount of money. For good causes.
Yeah.
So that was perfect. Instead of paying tax, you pay to the things that you think is good.
Were they
and that is good for business.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they also invented something that was called venture philanthropy.
Yeah.
It was also always about business opportunities. So they could look good
Mhm.
for the general public and get something out of it.
Yeah.
And earn money on every dime they gave away. It was always this concept. And also with the truth.
Yeah.
The truth thing was that it's like, we don't want to be truthful, but if we decide what is truth,
Uh-huh.
and that's what you're doing when you're controlling the education system,
Yeah.
and the press.
So they,
the press
so they
says,
controlled the medical system. They
Yeah.
controlled the education system. They
Yeah.
controlled the press already then.
very, very early on, they started to. I mean, we didn't have that much. I mean, the universities were very small before. Mostly, they were into theology a lot.
Mhm.
So this explosion with the universities comes in the late 19th century and the early 20th century.
Yeah.
And those who pay for it is the industrialists.
Yeah.
And their foundations. And we also had Carnegie at that time. Carnegie and Rockefeller is the first to have these big foundations and funding this and being very involved in education and health and so on.
Yeah.
So in that way, they can steer the narrative and they pay the professors. So they started very, very early on with this. And we can see how this has evolved now.
Yeah. And fast forward, I think,
Yeah.
to maybe the 50s,
Yeah.
because you are here actually for this Congress
Yes.
tomorrow to speak about the event coming up in September, but we touch to that later,
Yes,
I think.
Yeah.
You're here to talk on a climate Congress.
Yeah.
What about climate? I think there is something, some interesting stories about the 50s, or maybe a little bit earlier already.
Yes. The thing is, why did I think it was interesting with the
Exactly.
Rockefellers?
Yeah.
I mean, I actually started investigating the peak oil theory in it's 20 years now.
Can you shortly explain what peak oil theory is?
Peak oil is a theory about the extraction of oil, but it has a bell curve with the extraction. You just get more and more and more, and when you hit the peak with every well, and then it just runs out. And it was the theory came from a guy called M. King Hubbert. And he said this is one well. It's like this. And so he took all the known oil wells in the United States and put it together, and then he could predict, okay, this date in 1970, the oil in the United States will start to decline.
So they were
and
working
this
with
will
models.
be a problem. Big problem. How do we do? And oil gets more expensive.
And then they also started calling it fossil fuels, or is there a connection?
It is.
Okay.
So fossil fuels. I mean, it's in the late 19th century they actually decided upon this theory that it was from fossils, not an abiotic, but it's a geological process.
But you studied.
So I studied this because I had read some reports about oil, and I was kind of alarmed about it. And as I did this, I investigated the energy market. I wanted to understand the place behind, and of course I stumbled upon the Rockefellers because they were involved in the oil industry. That's natural to do that.
And interestingly enough, in that time you were in the Green Party yourself, or
Yes, yes, I was, because I was alarmed about this. How do we do with the oil? If it's running out, it will be problems for the whole society. Everything runs on oil.
yeah,
so,
yeah,
so, so, so I was in the Green Party. I was in the city planning board in my hometown, and yeah, I thought this was very important. I tried to raise the interest for this,
Yep.
but
nobody listened.
they weren't really interested. They were
Okay.
interested in the climate issue, because that was gaining momentum at this time.
Yes.
We had, Al Gore, An Inconvenient Truth in 2006.
I think. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Mm.
So
So the thing was, I was writing because I started at the university again, starting learning about geography, because I wanted to know about giving answers about peak oil theory. Is there anybody that knows anything about it?
mhm.
And so I started to study this geography, and as I was doing this, I wrote a student thesis
Yep.
about biofuels,
Yep.
because I was interested in alternatives to oil.
Yes.
And during this investigation about this, I wanted to know, because they said, no, it's not about the peak oil. That's
Mhm.
not the problem. The problem is climate. So I just wanted to know the background to the climate
Yep.
issue.
Yep.
And as I was doing that, because I was a believer.
Yeah.
I really was a believer.
Yeah.
Because the press said it.
You are not now anymore.
No.
I understand.
I was a believer.
You were.
Be- Before I had knowledge.
Yeah.
When I had knowledge, because I was digging into it, I was reading a lot of research, and just found out what this is. This isn't science.
No.
This is models.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any. You can back up. It's like, this isn't science. Science is you have to have empirical evidence. You have to observations. You have to falsify.
And it was only models that they used, more or
And
less.
you
or...
couldn't prove that how much are humans causing of this. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So I was kind of shocked.
Yeah.
And started to say, what is this? What is this about? Who and what does this theory comes from?
Mm-hmm. So
Who
and
started
then
this?
you
And then I
found out about the
found out
Rockefellers.
that a lot of this early research was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation,
Uh-huh.
and that started during the 50s.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
Then they established the Rockefeller Foundation in the 50s, or
no, that was in 1914,
1914.
1913,
Okay.
1913.
1930.
Just
okay.
before the Ludlow massacre.
Okay, so that was already there.
It was there. They funded the universities and everything, research. They had a huge influence on research during the 50s, of course.
Yeah.
After the Second World War.
Then it was the next generation, the brothers who.
Yeah. And the brothers, the Rockefeller brothers, that's the sons to John D. Rockefeller Jr.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jr., of course, son of John D. Rockefeller from Standard Oil. Jr., he was the head of the Rockefeller Foundation.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he was the first president.
Uh-huh.
And then the brothers came, and they started an own philanthropy called the Rockefeller Brothers Fund.
Uh-huh.
That were very important.
Okay.
Because in the 50s, things happened.
Yeah. And so how did you get the information about the Rockefellers? Is there a lot available? How can you find this?
It's very, very, very easy. And it's become very, very easy since internet came, because everything is published. And the Rockefellers have a very, very prominent archive, Rockefeller Archives, that is covers everything that they have done. So they're very good at collecting everything that these foundations do, and their institutions are doing. But what I did was I was searching through the annual reports.
Yeah.
The annual reports for Rockefeller Foundation and the annual reports for Rockefeller Brothers Fund and associated organizations.
Yeah.
So, and in that way, I could see what are they funding and why are they doing it, and so on. So that was the core
Yeah.
of the research. When I expanded this with other like biographies and so on, just to know why did they do this? Why do because that was the question. This is the family that gave the world oil and made us dependent on oil. And now they tell us don't use oil. So it was a strange thing. Why? Why do
I can't believe it.
The oil family number one get involved in climate? That's very strange.
So can you explain how that happened? Why did this happen, and what happened after that?
Yes. So one thing, the Rockefellers, they have been prominent in other areas. And
like
one of eugenics, population control. Population is a population and conservation, environment. Very, they have been very involved from the beginning.
In a good way, or?
Well, it's more like, as I said, it's more like population control, control of people and resources. That's the thing that it's all have been about from the
and control
50s.
Means don't let the population grow anymore, or
even
let it shrink, or
that's very, very important. So they started an organization called the Population Council in 1952, and also an organization called the Conservation Foundation already in 1948. And it was very, very much about the Population Council. We had a big meeting. And they decided upon a plan on how to control the population of the world. How can we lower it? How can we? What methods can we apply to this? So then, they were very much into family planning, of course. And
I remember pictures of the Rockefellers himself with 6, 7 children.
They have a lot of children themselves because they are eugenicists. They believe that themselves are better.
They are different species from we ordinary people, so to say.
They are the ultra wealthy. They are a different class, and because they have the success, they are better than the rest. So that's a kind of philosophy with these people. Unfortunately for us. So they have. So I've worked very much to contain this, especially Africa, of course. They have been very involved. And the thing was, when we have this with venture philanthropy, because they controlled a lot of the medical establishment, and they could deliver solutions for the population crisis. That's always been the case. They have this idea of crisis means opportunity.
And
a crisis is a good thing.
Preferably a worldwide crisis.
Yes, they have always sought worldwide because they've been involved in. I mean, Standard Oil was a worldwide company. David Rockefeller, one of the brothers, he was in banking. He was at Chase Manhattan Bank. They were involved in worldwide banking. One of the biggest, most influential players during the 20th century. And building connections with, the communist China. They opened their first account in Chase Manhattan Bank.
You're kidding?
No. So we had.
So was communist China also kind of an example for them then, or?
Yes, I mean, David Rockefeller was actually in China because I have a story in the Rockefeller book about how they looked on China, because the Rockefeller Foundation had been involved in China before the revolution and everything. So they had very, very good connections. They had to give up that when Mao came into power. But in the early 70s, David Rockefeller said something during a meeting that we should talk to China again. And after that, it was arranged meetings. We had Henry Kissinger, Nixon, and I mean, Henry Kissinger was also, I mean, he was always their guy.
Yes, yes.
Kissinger worked for the Rockefellers.
Did
That's
they
very,
have
very
any
well.
influence in the one-child policy of China then, or
Yeah, but
because they
yes,
want to
yes,
have
yes,
population
yeah,
control?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that, I mean, after all these meetings, we had Zbigniew Brzezinski from the Trilateral Commission, and Trilaterals are a Rockefeller organization founded by David Rockefeller. They were very involved in China, and this was the time when the account was set up at Chase Manhattan Bank,
Yes.
and global business was starting to be interested in China.
Yeah.
So this was set up by David Rockefeller and Chase Manhattan Bank and Zbigniew Brzezinski, and so on.
Yeah.
And just after that, China started the one-child policy.
Yeah. That's a coincidence, of course.
There are only coincidences. There are only coincidences.
Okay. Well, maybe
Yeah.
back to the climate story.
Yes.
So they are looking for problems worldwide, so
Yeah.
to say, and then they have the solutions, or the companies have the solutions.
Yes.
I think. So how did that develop since the 50s? I remember the Club of Rome, for example. Can you tell a bit more about that?
Yes. But I have to mention one thing. That
Yes.
was in order to have this control, they were very into, I mean, worldwide problems. How do you solve them?
Yeah.
You have to have worldwide management.
Yes.
And that has always been one of the most important things
Yeah.
for them. Not local, but worldwide,
Yes.
global.
Yeah.
And they were very, very involved in the setup of the United Nations. And also was involved in the League of Nations already in the early 20s.
Just after the war, I think, the United Nations that they established.
1945.
Yes.
It was actually, they had meetings before the war ended.
Yeah.
So we had the conference, everything was set up. So it was kind of ready for takeoff. Yes. And actually the brothers, the Rockefeller brothers, they, one of them were at a conference in San Francisco. That was when the organization was officially set up. And he and his brother said, when the question came with where should we have the headquarters for United Nations?
Yes.
And of course, New York. And they said, you could have it out in our place.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Pocantico Hills.
And
it has a Dutch name, I think, Kukwit. Because you know, I mean, New York, New Amsterdam, Harlem, and so on.
Yeah.
So this was a Dutch area, actually.
Okay.
And the place that will have their big mansion.
Yeah.
A lot of mansions.
Yeah.
That has I think it's a Dutch kind of name from the beginning. So. Actually, I've read it.
Very possible.
But we said we could have United Nations.
Yes.
At our place.
Yeah.
But it was the other people involved said, no, it's too long from New York City.
Yeah.
It's better if we have it
in the city itself.
In the city. So what happened? John D. Rockefeller Jr. he bought an area. I mean, very strategically.
Yeah.
And he gave away this area for the United Nations to put their headquarters there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is the climate. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We had United Nations. United Nations worked with, I mean, peace agenda, of course,
Yes.
and the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
How can we don't want this kind of war.
No.
So we need these organizations that can make peace.
Yes. Yes.
They didn't really succeed in this.
And the atomic bomb was, of course, a big scare.
Yes, that was the biggest scare.
Yeah.
But they started to investigate other global problems at that time. And so that came in the 50s. I mentioned this population council. We had a meeting in 1952. During this meeting, there was a meteorologist attending. It was a sonograph, it was called Roger Revelle. Roger Revelle was is known now as like the father of modern global warming theory. So he made it popular.
He was Italian?
In the 50s.
Or?
No, he was an American.
He was an American,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And very connected, of course. He was the meeting set up by the John D. Rockefeller III.
Yeah.
And invited to this. He was a friend of Detlef Bronk, that was sat on the board of Rockefeller Foundation, Rockefeller Brothers Fund, very connected to the Rockefeller family.
Yep.
He was also the head of National Academy of Sciences, so he had a huge influence over science at that time in the United States. And after this, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund started a project called the Special Studies Project.
Yep. They've done more of these special projects.
But this was very important. I found out about it. I bought this book about with every panel what they are. So they took a lot of intelligent people, the most bright minds in the United States and some probably from Europe as well, put them in panels to discuss the future and the future for America.
Yeah.
How United States would work for this new, we actually say New World Order in this. So it was their responsibility to create this New World Order. And they said, and the United Nations would be a part of this, of course, because it was an organization that they had funded and founded together with other influential people. So they said, we need problems.
Yeah.
What kind of problems do we have that are global, that are in need of international management?
Yeah. So what did they find?
And they said, okay, we have science I mean, science is something that is we are working with global groups together. It has been this way since old, that the scientists of the world has been cooperating with each other.
Yes.
So science was a good way. And
is that also because you can say we are scientists, we have done our research, trust us,
authority.
We know,
the new priesthood.
Exactly.
So and then they talked about this, that there were kind of a couple of scientific problems that were useful.
Yeah.
And this was global health was one of them. Because diseases, pandemics, they go across the borders.
Yes.
It can't be contained by one nation. You have to have a global authority.
Everybody should work together.
And the second thing was oceanography and meteorology. Yeah. And that's climate science.
Exactly.
Because the atmosphere is everywhere. It don't belongs to one nation. We have to cooperate to solve the problem. So that's when we talk about climate, and also how and it's almost like we talk about weather. We talk about man-made climate, global warming, and but not in the way like it's carbon dioxide. It's like, because climate at this time was very connected to the military research.
Uh-huh.
It actually starts very much with military funding, with how do the weather works and how can we influence climate.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was man-made could also be that we manipulate.
Exactly. That we play
with
God
them.
in a good way
Yeah,
to
actually,
save the
we
planet.
can,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But that means we have to have a global authority
Yeah.
to take care of this.
Yeah.
So,
But this somehow burst out in the last years, so to say. I think with the pandemic we had.
yeah,
That is an example of it all. And of course, the climate change issue is very interesting at the moment.
yes,
So-
and it has been. I mean, they started in the late 50s,
Yes.
or early 50s.
So it's 70 years ago
Yeah, so
already.
it's very, very old. And I follow in my book every step they took during the 60s to make it an issue that we have to look into this.
Yes.
Science have to. We have to have funding for science, climate science, and that was about how do humans influence climate,
Yes.
not much about natural processes of the climate. It was much how can humans influence climate. So that was.
But
the
in a
the first
positive
part.
way, not that we.
No, but then so Roger Revelle, he talked about carbon dioxide.
Uh-huh.
Too much carbon dioxide
Yes.
will create global warming, will create problems.
Yeah.
So it became problematic
Yes.
during this time.
Uh-huh.
So we also had propaganda films during late 50s talking about, I mean, it's like watching the propaganda we have now about the climate. The same, it's the ice that will melt and you will have these sea levels, but will be not fun for the Netherlands, of course.
No, we will, in the east of Netherlands, you will live next to the sea because the sea will flow over the whole of the Netherlands, more or less. Yes. So earlier on, you talked about the Dutch influence here.
Yeah.
And I think Pieter Winsemius is a name that came up, but also the Dutch royal family, Queen Beatrix.
Yeah, they've been very, very involved in this.
Okay.
And we have a Brundtland report.
Yes.
And during the Brundtland report.
What exactly was the Brundtland report?
I mean, it's a foundation for the sustainable development concept, and what when became Agenda 21, that later developed into Agenda 2030. So it's huge. I mean, that is the agenda.
Yeah.
That is the most crucial things. And in the Brundtland report,
it was in the 80s, I think.
87.
Yeah.
It was proposed something called the Earth Charter.
Mm-hmm.
That was ethical principles for a globalized society.
Uh-huh.
And this project that came, it was after this big climate meeting this big environment meeting in Rio in 1992.
Yes.
It was decided that we have to have an Earth Charter.
Yes.
Those who gave kind of orders for this was Queen Beatrix and
Ruud Lubbers.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Okay.
And they involved Mikhail Gorbachev, former leader of Soviet Union.
Yes.
And Maurice Strong, former oil executive that was involved as he was the chairman of this big environmental meeting in Rio, before in Stockholm, very, very into it.
So he's a key figure during this period.
Very, very key figure, very, very close to the Rockefellers as well, because they were very involved together. So the Dutch royals has been very close connected with the Rockefellers.
And do you know why the Dutch were so involved? What was behind that?
Well, one thing can be business.
Aha,
Mm. Royal Dutch
Shell.
Shell. And so you ask also when we had this commission, Earth Charter Commission,
Yeah,
and we had the Dutch royals behind it,
yeah,
and they also had a coordinator that was involved in. Okay, we have to have this charter, and we had meetings and everything to prepare for this document.
And who was that?
Stephen Rockefeller.
Aha.
Yeah. So Stephen Rockefeller is the son of Nelson Rockefeller, one of the Rockefeller brothers.
So you think that the Dutch...
So we had also, I mean, big share owners of Royal Dutch Shell and Exxon. They decided on the environment for us.
Yeah. And was that also the time that the IPCC was established?
It was in 1988. It was during the Brundtland Commission. so it's very, and the Brundtland Commission report, it had a follow-up report.
Yeah.
It was called Beyond Interdependence, the meshing of the world's economy and ecology. And one of the main authors of this was Peter Samius. Yeah.
He has been a minister in the Netherlands. Yes.
And this book was released by the Trilateral Commission that was set up by David Rockefeller. So it was his think tank.
Yeah.
So Peter Samius he wrote a chapter about an action plan.
So he was also connected to the Rockefellers, or?
Yeah, I mean, of course, David Rockefeller wrote forward for this book, and the Trilateral Commission was his think tank. So of course he was invited to these circles and to present a plan for how to achieve the goals that we have set up in our common future, the report, the Brundtland report.
Yeah. And what kind of goals were that in that report?
Well, we see that was the Agenda 21
for the 21st
century.
Yes,
and plans for a global society, because that's what it is.
The new world order.
But it's sold under
Build Back Better.
Yeah, but it's sold under environment to save the earth.
Yes,
that it was the case. So it's they say it themselves. It's an agenda, and it's run by these people. And Dutch royals is a big player in this. We know also Beatrix's father, Prince Bernhard, Bilderberg, also World Wildlife Fund.
So it really, it's hard to believe for me. So the Dutch royals were in this for business reasons. So to personally be better because of the influence that they had.
I mean, they have a big idea about a future society.
Yeah.
So it's not. I mean, business is one thing. Crisis creates opportunity for business.
Yeah.
But also an idea of an ideal society.
Yes.
Because that's what these people have in mind in the end. They want to create a better world.
Yeah.
A better society.
Yes.
And but that is run by more or less the big global corporations.
Yeah.
That we also see with how in 2019 World Economic Forum and United Nations made a partnership with the aim to achieve the Agenda 2030.
Yeah, and we had the Paris Agreement in 2015.
Yeah.
Then I think they developed the 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
They were decided but it was a meeting at the United Nations in September 2015. Nobody noticed, I think, because everyone was into the Paris meeting at that time. But they, and this was actually, it was decided a couple of years before what kinds of goals that we would have, and then they signed this in 2015.
Yeah.
And then we had the partnership, because one of big thing of this agenda 2030, it's partnership.
Yeah.
We have to have partnerships between public and private to achieve this.
Yes.
So, and I think it's a toxic mix that comes out of it. It's combining the worst sides of capitalism with the worst sides of socialism.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to a technocracy. And that's what this year, we have Summit of the Future.
Yeah, I think most people haven't heard.
Yeah, nobody have heard
that this is planned.
Nobody have heard of this meeting.
So,
but it's huge, and they have been working with for this meeting since like 2021. And the ideas for us is even older. And consultations. I mean, it's a lot of, and they will produce an outcome document called Leaders Pact for the Future. The Pact for the Future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this will take place September this year.
Yes.
So all eyes of the world will be on them, or?
No. Nobody have heard of this. They don't mention it on television.
No.
And it's strange because we find we have this advisory board for this, and the head of this is the former Swedish Prime Minister, Stefan Löfven. But it would be a huge thing in Sweden, but it isn't. Nobody even mentioned this.
No.
They just said, oh, Stefan has got a new job at United Nations. Oh, lucky for him.
Yeah, and that's it.
That's it. It's nothing about what is the job, what he has been doing. Nothing about it.
And what do you expect to happen?
Well, we have a document. You just download to read the pact. So they have they are under negotiations. So they will finish this before this meeting. So now is the finishing touches on this document.
Yeah.
And this has things in it that is kind of worrisome.
Yeah. Can you
like the setup of an emergency platform in case of a global crisis. And this emergency platform, it will be like the Secretary General said, now we have an emergency, and they will put up actors in a network that will work to solve the questions.
Yes.
And we will have everything prepared in protocols on how to do it when the crisis hit.
Yeah.
And as we write in one of their policy briefs, it's like this could have consequences for human liberties. Because, I mean, it's martial law. You have to, like in COVID. It was so, but now we list like 7 crises.
Okay.
7.
Can you take
climate, for example?
Yes.
Pandemics.
Yeah.
Biological agent, also biological warfare.
Yeah.
And we also have cyber warfare, cyber connectivity. I mean, that's a huge thing. And also with breakdown of goods. I mean,
so
global.
If somebody, and you say, who can call the emergency in such a situation? The United Nations?
United Nations, according to the pact.
Yes, and then
they will work with other actors, like World Economic Forum. Because World Economic Forum has more or less, I mean, they have evolved into the premier public-private partnership organization for the world. So they will step in to help to solve the crisis. That, of course, give big profit for those involved in this.
Yeah.
And also great power for the United Nations. And in the end, we also want to reform the United Nations.
Aha.
So if you go into the negotiations on and the
Negotiations?
lobbyists,
or- Yeah.
So we have this, for example, something called the Global Governance Forum and the Climate Governance Commission, and they talk about they want a planetary emergency declared
Yeah.
during the summit.
Oh, they already declare a planetary
They want
emergency.
they propose that the Secretary General have a emergency
in September.
declared in September.
Okay, so we can spend the summer holidays.
Yeah,
and
we
then,
don't know what happens, but
then-
that's a proposal anyway. And they want to use this emergency platform, and that is the climate
Yeah.
emergency. We talk a lot of climate. We have to contain this threat,
Yeah.
and that if you go into what this emergency platform can do, it's not will not be good for us.
No. So that's also, I
Um,
think, the connection in the World Health Organization where
Yeah.
they connect climate and health
Yes.
together.
Yeah, one
So-
health concept.
Yeah. So, yeah, the future doesn't look too bright, I think, if we look back to the last year's COVID
Yeah,
period.
we know
for
what happened
example.
at that time. So,
Yeah.
so if that is what what we can expect
Mhm.
again, I mean,
So maybe I think we're getting to the end of this talk.
Yeah.
It's not a nice view to look at. Do you have anything what we can do as citizens?
The thing is, I am quite positive because I think this is a weakness because they exposed their ways during the pandemic.
Yep.
And people reacted. So it's harder the next time. It's more people that
Mhm.
understand these things now.
Yeah.
And it's like we are reaching a tipping point in people that understand how these things works. And it's like the Wizard of Oz movie
Mhm.
in the end,
Yeah.
with illusionists behind the curtain. He's there with a machine, just creating this illusion for us, and because that's what it is.
Yeah. So you
It's very
think-
easy to expose, and we also have one thing. The Ivy Lee, he said,
Yeah.
people will find out in the end.
And
So you
that's
have to be truthful.
and you feel
You cannot escape truth in the end,
exactly.
and that's their downfall.
And you feel that is happening today. So
Yeah.
it's a matter of time
It's
before
a matter
the
of
masses
time,
see through it.
and they are in a hurry.
Yeah.
They say we don't have time. It's an organization
With small
that's
time
called.
frame.
They are in a hurry
Yeah.
because it's getting exposed, and things are so strange now. So it's just insane.
Yeah.
With what's happening. So even those who are kind of just watching their TikTok clips, they
they
also feel something wrong here. Something's rotten in the state of Denmark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very good time to end this conversation because it was not all that positive, but
But I
the end is
yeah,
positive
the end
because
is
you
positive.
feel that people are getting aware of this thing happening,
Yeah.
and when the masses find out,
And they will be desperate. They will do everything, and then they expose themselves even more.
Yeah.
Doing stupid things.
Yeah.
So,
Well-
truth wins in the end.
that's a
That's
good
what I
one.
think. Yeah.
Truth wins in the end.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this conversation,
Yeah, thank you.
Jacob, and thank you for watching.